Hello, everyone. My name's Dawn Wages, and you are on the Python Pulse Live. It is live every second Friday of the month. Last month, we were actually the first Friday because we had a special event. I did that with Nitya. Go check out that episode. It was so good. We were live from Pi Data, New York, and it was just like a fantastic episode. You should check that one out. But here we are, this episode. It's just me today. I hope that's okay. We're going to be talking about supercharging your Python development environment with VS Code. And we'll be doing this like rendition. It's like this live version of a workshop that I did at DjangoCon US. It is also a version of a talk that I did at PyCon US. And it's also the last episode of the year. So, I hope you enjoy. It's been a really, really crazy year, and it's been a full year of Python Pulse episodes. So this is the 13th episode because, I don't know, lucky number 13, because we had 2 episodes in January, and we're going to, keep trucking along. So this is going to be really interactive. So thank you. I'm seeing snakes in the chat. Give me some snakes. Also, tell me where you're tuning in from. And if you really want to be awesome, tell me where you heard about the Python Pulse. I really want to know what channels we're using and what's working. So anyway, tell me where you're from. Tell me where you heard about me from. And get your questions ready for Python, VS Code, Dev Containers, Codespaces. It's going to be a great episode. All right. So if it is your first time here, welcome back. Or if it's your first time here, welcome. If it's your second or third or fourth or fifth, welcome. Make sure that you sound off in the chat, and we're going to keep this interactive. But first, let's do the announcements. All right, so we're announcing that Python is now in Excel. If you had not heard yet, this is big, jazzy news. Python is in Excel. So you know how you used to be able to do VBA and you could do some programming there. It is now Python, and they're like little Jupyter kernels fitted in that little shell, and it zooms out to an Azure cloud instance, and you're writing Python in your Excel document. And for people like me who used to be a analyst of some sorts, that's how I actually got started with my Python, and then jumped over to web dev soon after. That's really exciting. So check it out, learn more. You can find it by binging Python and Excel, but you can also find them on our show notes, and that's in the description below. Python 3.12 is now the default Python version in the Windows Store. That's really big. It's really exciting. Shout out to the team for getting the release out very soon after Python 3.12 released in October. And we also have Python Azure Functions now supports Python 3.11. That's the version that came out last year, and it is the fastest version of Python yet. That's the one where we have an internal team at Microsoft called the Faster C Python team, and they contributed to that Python 3.11 release. We have a lot of C Python contributors here at Microsoft, so they're really contributing to mini releases. And we'll have a blog post about the awesome things that Microsoft Pythonistas did for this 3.12 release coming up soon. And App Service now supports Python 3.12. Let's get a spiel about App Service, because I think it's really important to kind of figure out that App Service differs from container apps, for example, because it is a platform as a service. And so it adds the power of Microsoft to your application. It also has security, load balancing, auto scaling, automated management, things like that. But then you're also able to take advantage of DevOps abilities. You have GitHub, Docker, and other sources that are all wrapped in and work very well with App Service, which is one of my favorite ways to deploy. I deploy App Service through VS Code, and I really enjoy that. And I'm a containers girly, so I'm excited to see that they're supporting the latest and greatest of Python. So shout out to that team again. And it's not on the show notes, but I do want to make a note that the Azure SDK in Python now supports vector search. So if you're big on the AI buzz in the streets, vector search is really important for machine learning. And so it's a method of searching for information within various data types, including image, audio, text, and video, and more. And it determines search results based on the similarity of numerical representations of data called vector embeddings. So that is a lot to say around the way and the methodology that you have this new search functionality within your database, Azure SQL, and it now supports vector searches. So that's really awesome. Okay, and then last but not least, second to last but not least, it is a new month, so that means we have a new VS Code release. So in this month, we have configurable debugging options within the Run button menu, type hierarchy from the Pylance team. Who among us is familiar with Pylance? I love Pylance, and it's really one of the things that is involved in part of what makes Python programming in VS Code so great. Oh, it sounds like someone doesn't know Pylance. So Pylance is built off of Pywrite. Pywrite is open source code. Almost all of VS Code is open. We have a little bit behind the scenes as well to add some secret sauce in there. But Playwright is built off of, Pylance is built off of Pywrite, the Python typings, and it makes VS Code go and really lovely. And we also have to deactivate command support for automatically activated virtual environments in the terminal, and Smart Send REPL for VS Code improvements. And also make sure you check out FlashCon December 16th through 17th. We have a colleague, Pamela Fox, will be speaking at FlashCon. Myself and one of my colleagues, Luciana Abud, will be doing a cameo appearance. That's secret. I don't know if we're supposed to tell, but I will be like popping up and being like, hello, in the middle of her presentation. It's pre-recorded, but it's going to be dope. Support the Flask community. It is online. I think it's free. I'm pretty sure I signed up and it was free. So do FlashCon Flask and Django are the two largest web frameworks for Python. And I think you should check out the event. It's really great. All right, let's keep moving. So I guess we're just going to jump in. Okay, so we're going to supercharge our Python development environment in VS Code and Dev Containers, and then also sprinkle in a little Codespaces if you got a bit of time. Yeah. Cool. I also want to make sure that I'm not responding to another stream that's going on at the same time, and I can see their chat. So if I respond to something different and it's not Python and it's .NET, you could just blame the other stream. All right. Okay, so some of the things that we're going to cover, and make sure you sound off in the chat as well. This is just like we're starting with a presentation, but we're going to get into more and some live demos and stuff as well. But we're going to talk about becoming a VS Code power user. Yeah, dev containers are so dope. Oh, I'm so glad we got some fans in here. That's so great. We're going to become VS Code power users here, hopefully in less than an hour. We'll talk about making open source contributions easier with some of these tools. We also have some extensions and some things for code collaboration. VS Code, Dev Containers, and Codespaces all do really well with making code collaboration very easy. And then with Codespaces, you can access some GPU for free. And I kind of buried the lead. I don't want to bury the lead on that one. So yeah, that one's Codespaces. You can access Azure Cloud from your browser, which really helps with development startup. All right, so here is a QR code. Oh, this was for DjangoCon Africa. I also did this talk at DjangoCon Africa. So ignore that unless you want to see their slides. And a little bit about me. We don't got to go for too long, but I've been a Django engineer for 6, 7, 8 years. Now I'm the Python community PM here at Microsoft. I organize mentorship program with Django. And I'm the chair of the Python Software Foundation. And the last line is the stream that you're watching literally right now. So this is what I hear all the time. Please put off sound off in the chats more if you hear things like this a lot too. VS Code is an extensible editor. So how do I extend it to my will? And that's a tough one. One of the best ways that I found with approaching this conversation is really just guiding people around the experience, showing people where to find things. If you're confused, here's how you get out of that. And also, if you want to find some new features, here's how you do that. So we're going to be going all of those things. We're go through some supercharging kind of elements of VS Code as well, and I'll show you how to extend the extensible editor. Some pro tips. So I use both VS Code and VS Code Insiders. Insiders is the bleeding edge of VS Code. There's work that we're doing across a very, very diligent and complicated team every day. So there are nightly releases for VS Code. And so if you are one of the people who's also familiar with maybe Windows Insiders concept, for example, you are electing to get all of the most latest releases, and then you are able to check them out, see if they work, and then you get to do the great thing of open source code, for example, and file issues ahead of time for the benefit of the entire audience. And it's really fun. I'm in the issues sometimes, very rarely, but I'm in the issues. But our team who manage and triage all of these issues are very, very nice. And it gives you a little bit of warm and fuzzies to contribute to open source sometimes. So I hope you do decide to turn on and download Insiders. They are parallel programs, so you can have them both installed on your machine. I'll show you both on my machine in just a minute. And then Setting Syncs allows you to sync between the two or sync your account from other devices that you have that you're playing with VS Code on. So that helps with keeping your settings and not having to redo some of these very specific settings over and over again. Also, this year was a big year for VS Code because we released a new feature called profiles. So since maybe August, we've been talking about profiles on this channel. Every episode has a VS Code profile included. I hope you were able to check them out. I have a couple on a future slide, on an upcoming slide. But if you enable profiles, what it does is it encapsulates a number of your user settings, a good bit of your user settings, and then you are able to share that with a colleague. So for example, I like using SQL tools that also allows for me to explore my Postgres database visually in my VS Code. Super cool extension. And being able to do that, and then you have a colleague sitting over your shoulder. I'm like, how did you do that? You just save your profile and you send it over to your team. I also know that there's some organizations who who create extension packs for all of their extensions and then use them for their team so everyone's on the same page when they're doing their startup and integrating and working in their environment. And you can also do the same thing for profiles to streamline that experience when you have new developers that you need to onboard. All of these I really imagine as onboarding and collaborative tools, things that really help you supercharge your working settings. And also the third pro tip is not necessarily a tip, but almost like a warning, is there are workspace level settings and user level settings. So user level settings are things that apply to me. I will change the color of my VS Code to bright pink and change all of my icons to funky little pictures of Nicolas Cage. That's my user level settings. If you want workspace level settings, they will be saved under your .vs code directory. I have a whole visual on it in the future, but it'll be under your .vs code directory. And those are settings that you are going to share. And you're also commit that in that entire directory. It'll be something that it will be in your repo. And then when your colleagues use it, it could just like sit there if they're using PyCharm, for example, or Emacs or Vim. But if they're using VS Code, it will automatically pick up those changes and incorporate them. So I usually keep those to things that are important for sharing. So for example, if I'm showing code through a Jupyter notebook, the crux of that purpose of that project is the Jupyter notebook. So I include those settings in my VS Code workspace settings. And more, I'm like zooming through things. So if you have questions, please put them into the chat. This is supposed to be collaborative. And again, I mentioned that this talk was like, the talk was 30 minutes. The slides take about an hour itself. And then the tutorial was 3 hours. So if you want to get to any of these slides, the link is at the bottom and you'll have them in perpetuity. It'll also be a source of reference. So that should be really helpful as well. So VS Code profiles expedite things. So in 4 clicks, it lets you do default Python settings. I forgot to mention that. So if you click a button down in the bottom left-hand corner and you want to start a profile, they let you start a profile from a Python setting. So we have opinionated settings for Pythonistas out the gate in just 4 clicks. In 3 clicks, you can export those and then send them to a colleague. That was a use case I just mentioned. And in 2 clicks, you can develop in your browser. So you can just use that click and then you can open, and then you're using vscode.dev, which is really cool. Okay, so this is an example, but let me just actually go to my live project and I'll show you better. Cool. All right, so this is VS Code. I'm going to show you around the anatomy of VS Code, and it's kind of the one-on-one, but I won't spend too long on this because I don't want to have you all fall asleep on me. So I'm opening up a new window. This is the default welcome page on startup. I always keep my welcome page highlighted just because I like seeing this. It's very zen for me. You can also do walkthroughs. So something confusing about walkthroughs in general is that if you know about them, you're going to want to just assume that they're going to be there automatically. But I have these walkthroughs specifically because I have the Python extension installed. I have the WSL extension installed. I have the remote development extension installed. So I have these walkthroughs now. So when you first start, I recommend you setting up a profile. So by doing that, you go down to this cog icon in the bottom. You'll see I'm already in a profile. Mine's called Django Not Space. That's because that's the project I'm using. But if you want to just start a new profile, here are all of mine. You could create a profile right here. And I'm going to create a profile, and then I'm going to call it live stream. And I'll copy from Python. And I'll include all of the settings, keyboard shortcuts, user snippets, user tasks, and extensions. And I'll go into what all of those are later. And so then I'm going to create a new profile. And it is doing the thing down here. And it's creating a new profile. And you can also see that it has a completely different UI because the settings that I have before are saved to my user profile and my user settings. And this created something completely new. So also let's zoom in a little bit. Let's zoom in so everybody can see. And it also already started with, let's check out what's in this profile. So I can click on here, go back to profile, and then you go show profile contents. And so this is what's included in the default VS Code profile for Python. You have settings, and you can open your settings.json and see what's here. I'm at zoom level 4 because I want everybody to see. And it includes black formatter, but not much else. I mean, and it's excluding the very normal Python artifacts that don't get committed, usually in your git ignore, for example. And so it helps you out there. And it also will do Python auto completions. These are coming from Pylance, Python dot, either Pylance or some of the Python extensions. We also have snippets. Are people familiar with snippets here? I love snippets. Okay, wait. Also, Django snippets.org. I'm putting it in the chat. I love Django snippets. Um, this is just because it's maintained by homies of mine. They're really great people. If you do Django snippets, and you can add these snippets into your VS Code snippets. Now they have this interesting format. They're all in JSON format. I recommend you use VS Code GitHub Copilot to put these in. That's what one of my friends did. We're not going to be covering GitHub Copilot today. We have upcoming guests, so keep tuning in. We have upcoming guests who are going to be talking about GitHub Copilot, so don't worry about that. But this is snippets will help you do things. And so this will also come out of the box just if you use the VS Code profile. Hello, hello, hello. All right. And so then we have UI state. So this is not quite readable, but this indicates what currently looks like. And you can save the UI state if you want. If you want to save it for example, when I stream, I have one called Prezi mode. I'm not good at naming presentation mode and Prezi mode, but Prezi mode is the default one, and that always keeps my zoom. So anytime I'm doing a presentation, I don't have my dark mode on. I have my light mode. It looks really pretty. I have the right extensions, all that. And then we have the extensions, auto stock string with Python docstring generator, black formatter, dev containers. Woot, woot, we love dev containers in here. And for those who know, dev containers is on top of Docker. And we have the Docker extension in here, which also helps. Even better, TOML. PyLance, we talked about PyLance. PyLance is built off the top of Pyrite. We have the Python extension. Python Environment Manager is really cool. Let's show you that. I'll have to do that when I have an environment, created. But Python Environment Manager is really cool. It'll show you all of the virtual environments you have, and will help you navigate it. And we have remote SSH, tunnels, remote development, remote explorer, Rough. I love Rough. We are Rough fans around here. If people are not familiar, it is the linter that is super fast and built in Rough. It's built in Rust. It is Rough, and it's built by Charlie R. Marsh, and he is a founder of Astral, I think is the name of his company. And it's gone. I mean, the industry is abuzz about his new venture, so we're really excited, and we support Charlie over here because he created a community extension. And if you find things, that's a really good segue. If you find things that you want VS Code to do, you can build it yourself and write less TypeScript than you think you'd have to. So if it's for Python, we have a Python template for VS Code to build an extension. So you can build Python functionality, and that'll be really cool. Yeah, I got all my Python data analysis dev environment set up in your dev container. Super user. I love that. And if you want to share your dev container settings in the chat, we don't do links because of the chat because we don't want to spam. But if you give your GitHub handle and the file and directory, the repo and directory, you can share it with your friends. You can share examples, and maybe I'll get a little pull request on your dev container and help you out with some new features. I also love WSL. WSL is Windows Subsystem for Linux. So in this case, if I wanted to export and share it with my friends, I'm already on the same page. I'll just click export. You can do GitHub, which will open up a URL link and will let you create it in either a gist file, or you can open it up in vscode.dev, or you can create a local file. All right. That was fun. So we're back to my default. This is what I use. Django not space is usually what I'm programming on and with. And as we continue the tour, let's show you. So this is the app bar. We have the file explorer, we have search, we have let's see, we have the source control, run and debug. This is extensions, and this is where we'll find and search for extensions, the remote explorer and testing, and then additional views. It is embarrassing how long it took me to actually realize that there are additional views here. And this is where the rest of my extensions are. It's not just like magic or hiding or disappearing from you. They like tucked it away for easier digestibility. And if you don't know, if someone doesn't tell you, I'm your friend asking silly questions so you don't have to. So it's right here. So I have references, SQL tools, GitHub Actions, Docker, GitHub, LiveShare, and Azure. LiveShare. LiveShare is so cool. I was just playing around with it with Pamela Fox the other day. So LiveShare actually lets you I don't know, it's what it says. It like shares your VS Code live. You send a URL to a friend. They can open that up either in vscode.dev in the browser, or they can open up their own VS Code. So they don't actually need VS Code installed on their machine to engage in your live share. And then you'll have like live cursors on the screen doing the thing, and you can share your terminal at the same time too, so a friend can be typing in your terminal because you shared the link. Absolutely pair programming, and it is very, very powerful. I'm a fan. I was doing pair programming like that way back when there was Cloud9, before Amazon bought it. That was fantastic. I love that app as well. And we used to do a thing at my old consulting firm where we call it mob programming. So if we had this like nonprofit client that we really couldn't afford to spend a lot of cycles on and we wanted to take on, but we knew we could probably like bang out a really great feature in a weekend, we did this mob programming thing. So anybody who wanted to join got to join, and then we all like programmed at the same time. It was really fun because I'm working on the back end and we're talking about the API endpoints and X, Y, and Z. That was fun. So anyway, you can do that with live share, and maybe let me know in the chat if that's something that you'd like us to do on a future episode. We can like just build something random all together. That would be pretty fun. All right. So GitHub Actions is pretty cool. And GitHub, I really like. I just want to show that I have like open PRs. I have open issues here. This was for soft launch. The soft launch has been and gone. We have something for our proof of concept, and then we have some stuff without milestones. But I really like the GitHub pull requests extension. It's really, really useful, especially as you're developing with GitHub and collaboratively. So I appreciate that. Up here, we have our tabs. It may seem pretty intuitive, but it's going to look different soon. Soon, we are going to have undocked windows, so you're going to be able to pull them out. This is we're hype. I don't want to happen to open a new window every time. I just want to pull my tab out just like I can do my web browser. That's going to exist here. And I also have open the latest and greatest of the Python extension. So just to make sure that you're installing the Python extension whenever you're moving forward, when you're starting on VS Code. And that's the tour. That's most of the tour. We also have the status bar at the bottom. There you go. All right. Let's go back to the workshop. Cool. Okay, so here are some open profiles. I don't want to stand on them too long, but there's we had a episode for data science, another one for data wrangler, another really cool extension, Python testing, and GitHub. And this is a live stream you're watching. I don't know why we had it was because I was on stage. That's why. This episode in particular, though, I love this episode. You see all of us happy and smiling. It's because we really like each other. So this is the VS Code extensions team. They build so many different things. I don't know if you know him. Brett Cannon is a little bit famous in the C Python community. He leads this team, but honestly, the rest of the team is even cooler than Brett Cannon. So we have Paula and Eleanor and Courtney and Karthik and Luciana. And I just really like them. So check out this episode. And right here, it is pinned to the conversation about creating your own extension with Python. And this is the last episode with Nitya. You got to check that one out. So this is the settings in your Python. And you see at the bottom, you have that long purple line. That's your project. You have the VS Code directory and .VS Code directory. And inside, you'll have your settings.json, your task.json, your extensions, and your launch. This is also like an example of an actual project. This is my Django not space again. My launch.json is going to help me with my debugging experience. My settings are going to have, for example, my import strategy or how I'm going to title my GitHub issues from my GitHub extension. App service, what directory should it deploy from? I also have my Docker. This is a little bit of a lead, but I also have my Docker file and my .env and my Docker dev container over there shown on screen. So this is your user settings in your settings.json. You'll have, it works around your workspace, but it is not your workspace level settings. It is your user level settings for your workspace. And you can open it by just hitting Control, comma. For people who are web devs in Python, there is this new setting called Python analysis, go to definition in string literal. If you have string literals, they're module like string literals, it will act like a module symbol. This is really helpful in things like Django. So we have tools like this and interesting things like this all enabled all over. And it's really hard to know what does what, because the goal is to make it integrate seamlessly. So to find things like that, you keep up with our release, you watch the Python Pulse, and then you can also go through your command palette. And I'll show you how to do that. All right, so the command palette, you can do Control P, and that will open your command palette. This looks like I'm searching my files. That is true, but all I need to do is add a caret, and it opens up your command palette, which are actually actions involved in user interactions created by VS Code to make life easier for you. So you can see I recently used dev containers because I recently cleaned up my dev containers. It was making my entire machine very, very slow. If you know anything about Docker, that should make sense. I was also creating an environment and whatnot. We have accessibility, co-editor, location, things like that. But I'm going to type in Python and see what's available here. So if you program in Python frequently, you may know that one of the first things that you do is start a virtual environment or create an environment. You can use dev containers instead if you'd like, but you can create a virtual environment, and you can do that from the command palette here. And it also will integrate that Python interpreter into your VS Code so it works seamlessly. You can also create a terminal. You can launch TensorBoard. I love Jupyter. I'm a Jupyter Notebook fan. And you could also start a REPL, for example. Let's start a REPL. And there you go. I have a REPL started. And it opened up a new container. So this section is called Workbench. You'll have that here. You have the problems tab. Let's do this one in red. You have the problems tab. Let's do this one in blue. You'll have output, your debug console. We're currently in our terminal. You can also show ports. I have an Azure extension, so this opens. I also have an extension for SQL consoles, and then so on and so forth. It continues down here. You also have a list of your terminals on the side. So you'll have, right now I have an open Python REPL, and I have, I'm using Windows command prompt, and that's my default. I know you can make fun of me for that. My friends use DCH as DSH, and if I was cool enough, I'd start doing that soon. I wonder what comments have. So there's no comments in the workspace yet. Okay, cool. If you want to know more about your terminal, you can hover over it. And I really like this one because this holds a lot of information that you would otherwise not expect. We do a lot of work to make sure that your virtual environments are integrated well. So you have Git and Python, and it shows you where my interpreter is, which is inside my virtual environment. Cool. All right. Hopefully that did not bore you. I knew very little of that when I first started. Okay. Tasks.json. So if you're interested in doing things like accessing a server or doing something on a queue or wanting a button to click to do a thing over there, task.json is really good with that, and it will integrate app settings through VS Code. Your extensions are how you can recommend to another user what extensions you should use. There's also launch.json as well. Code workspace is when you have a multi-root workspace, and then these are other Python artifacts that you may come across when you're developing, and these are the things that inform some of the automatic enablings in your Python environment. So, my favorite extensions. This is a good part of the episode. My favorite extensions. So this is an extension pack that I was showing to you all just a few minutes ago. Don Germain is one of our colleagues. It is not a Microsoft official. You can find all of the things when it says Microsoft official. We love that. But this one is by him. And so if you see things by Don, those are good. Thumbs up. Those are great. And it includes Jinja and Python indent. It also includes the default Python extension. You also have Python Environment Manager, and Jupyter extension is really, really great. We're always working on things. So Eleanor is one of the people that I mentioned in the previous slide. She was on that live stream with us, and she's currently working on the Django test custom runner, and has an open issue for it. I do love Gitlin's extension. That's very, very handy. I should include that one on my next slide. That's great. Put in the chat if you have more extensions. Maybe you'll put me onto some extensions that I haven't used before. And check out this issue, but also keep an eye out for just open issues in VS Code. Have conversations. We love getting feedback from the community, and we go out of our way to just like try to talk to y'all and find where y'all at and figure out what to talk about. So if you have suggestions on your developer experience, make sure you check in. I mentioned I love Rust and Rough, and I do love Rust and the Black formatter. Data Wrangler, we talked about. There's a VS Code episode or Python Pulse episode on Data Wrangler. We also talked about Postgres and CockroachDB. These two extensions together are very, very powerful. And then the Jupyter extension. We also have two Python Pulse episodes with Sujin Choi on the Jupyter extensions. It was excellent, excellent, excellent. As always, Sujin's awesome. We talked about Gitlins, and Gitlins isn't on here. That's a huge miss. I should have Gitlins on here. But here are my favorite GitHub extensions, GitHub Actions. We have Codespaces, and pull requests and issues are really the ones I'm using all the time. But my Copilot fans, do we have some Copilot fans in here? Okay. Every time I do this session, this talk, someone's like, what about Copilot? I'm like, oh, well, you got to tune in because we have more conversations on Copilot coming soon. Oh, debug visualizer. I've not used that one. I'm gonna have to look at that before. Okay, cool. Thanks for sharing. That's good. We also have live share and remote tunnels. So one of the things that remote tunnels will do is the screenshot on the right, where you'll be able to open up a port, for example. And so what I used to do with a tool called ngrok, where I would and it was a paid tool that we used for work. And we would have a forwarded address, and then you would share that with a colleague, and then your colleague would be able to see your computer running as a server with your local project, like usually at like localhost 8,000 or 3,000 or something like that. And they will see what you're working on, so they can just randomly just like debug an experience, check out a user experience that you've done. Um, and that's really easy, and it's free and in VS Code, free tool. Are you all familiar with Nyan Cat? I love Nyan Cat. So at the bottom of your VS Code terminal, there'll be a loading bar, and it's Nyan Cat, and it's a little rainbow. Also, there's VS Code Pets. So that's created by one of my colleagues, Anthony Shaw, and it was one of the top contributed uh, projects for Hacktoberfest in 2022. Keep me honest. I think that's right. If not the, it was one of the, and it was created by Anthony Shaw, who's just like a really awesome human. So follow them. Oh, and you should follow his streams because he's playing around with Python 3.13 already. 3.12 just came out, and he's already playing around with 3.13. He does a lot with performance and profiling, and he's just a really, really smart person. So check out that if you want to figure out the bleeding edge of Python. And I always get on these streams as well. If you want to be real fast in your programming, you should just use Vim or Emacs. Well, you can key map some of those shortcuts to your VS Code extension, so you don't have to give up modes. We want you to extend your editor the way you want. That's the whole point. You don't have to give up anything if you don't want to. You can just try to do it on VS Code and see if it works. I don't know. So here are my favorite shortcuts. This is something you can screenshot, or you could take the slides later and find this too. But these are, actually, they're also on this mouse pad that we give out. If you see us in person, you can get this mouse pad. Okay, wait, there you go. The mouse pad. Isn't it so cute? So this was for PyCon last year. Anyway, these are the same shortcuts for on this mouse pad that I have handy every day. And these are ways that you can navigate faster. I also have more power user shortcuts. So I have planned, it is not me, so I might practice so I can be competitive, but I want to do a competition where we are dual screen, going through VS Code and seeing who can do things the fastest. And we'll have all of these shortcuts at our disposal. So if you are a super fast VS Code shortcut user, you could be part of the competition. That'd be really fun. These shortcut settings are really, really helpful. And I incrementally integrate those into my working environment, my working DX. And yeah, if you think that competition would be really fun, sound off in the chat, and maybe I'll pick you to join me on stage. That sounds like something we'd probably do in a Discord. So we do have a Discord server. It's aka.ms/Python-Discord. Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Becky. And join us there. That's where we hang out. So myself, there's Pamela, Anthony's there sometimes. Jay Miller is really, really cool, hangs out there. We have a lot of really cool people. Aaron Wisling, who's open source and does a lot with CitusCon. He hangs out there too. Really cool group. So we went through the VS Code portion. That was awesome. And actually, we're making really good time. We went over syncing settings, sharing your settings, user settings, workspace settings. After this, I hope you are that much closer to becoming a VS Code power user. Please review some of this stuff, and it'll make you faster enjoy your VS Code experience a lot more. And a lot of the things that we covered fall under the umbrellas of coding collaboratively, and becoming power users. It works on my machine. Who's heard that before? I was freelancing for 3, 4 years. I never really stopped, but like I was freelancing for a few years, which means I was on so many teams, and the onboarding was just like painful sometimes. Having something work on your machine and not work on your colleagues, or vice versa, is just a long-standing joke in the development community. And Dev Containers and Codespaces work to make that a little less frequent. So we had some shout outs that we love Dev Containers. We're going to go into Dev Containers now. So this should look familiar for those who are interested and familiar with programming, collaborative programming. You start with your development, you move to test and pre-production, and then your production. Oh, we have some demo text on here. That's hilarious. On the right side, we have your code, which encapsulates the production environment. And then on the left side, we have what is going to be used and covered in your dev containers, your development, your test, and your pre-production. And these are both containers. They're both going to be Docker containers. There are ways to just containerize everything and put it in the cloud. So one of the really key things is that your file system is now mounted and cloned to your development container, and you are able to seamlessly, without actually even noticing it, your files on VS Code. I don't know if people are familiar with WSL, but that was actually one of the tricky points when you on the first iteration of WSL, when you were mounting your files. It was confusing sometimes to try to figure out where you were navigating and going. WSL2 has a much more streamlined experience and is one of my easy go-to tools to development more smoothly, especially when I'm switching between my Windows and my Linux machine to consult on them to do work. It's easy to kind of keep those same commands. In addition to your file being mounted, you also have the entire power of VS Code. So you can do it in VS Code. So it's hard to kind of tell that it's what your VS Code is inside your dev container, but it is. And then you can also do it in Codespaces, and you can also do it. You also can do it on JetBrains tools. They've just recently, I think this past July, started incorporating the dev container, which is an open spec. So truly, all your favorite tools could support dev containers if you or the open source community were interested in galvanizing that support and collaborating. In addition, so when you're testing, you're going to, just like you were able to do on the remote containers extension, you're able to do that in dev containers, where you have ports easily exposed through your Docker environment to be able to share and to be able to code collaboratively. So the first thing that you're going to need to do is install Docker Desktop. This is built on top of Docker. I have Docker Desktop on my machine, and it really does all of the things. All of the knowledge that you have for Docker is fully transferable. The next thing you're going to do in VS Code is you're going to install the Dev Containers extension. You can either do the Dev Containers extension or Remote Development. Remote Development is just a extension pack that includes Dev Containers. And then you're going to want to copy or create whatever tools you're using. So, for example, Pamela Fox is fantastic and has, if you go to github.com/Pamela Fox, you'll get to her default GitHub page. And then she has a list of all of the projects that she's working for. And I think all of them support dev containers. And you can go to any of those. There's Flash, there's Fast API, there's Django, and I think there's like other things. She has an OpenAI one. Very, very cool. And you can copy any of that code, pull that over, and it'll work. You also have other resources that you can find on the internet. You can find from me to be able to copy some of those settings. Or you can create it on your own using your own kind of window editor through VS Code. And I'll go through that. I think that's the next slide, just going through it. Doot, doot. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to just do it real IRL since I'm not on a stage. Okay. So this is me working in dev containers outside of VS Code, or excuse me, This is me working in Django not space. It's my default project outside of dev containers. But I have a dev container in this application as well. So let's go. Actually, let's open up. Let's do it from a new project because that'll be a more interesting experience. Let's do a new window. And we have the welcome screen. So we're starting from scratch. And then I'm going to click on Indie Meet because that's the name of the project that I'm going to. And it's already opening the remote container for me. And it says it has an issue, which makes me sad. I could retry, or I can, and so this is why I love live demos, because you get funky things sometimes. So I can edit the dev container locally, and this shows which dev container I'm using. Yeah, it's this outside one. Okay. Let's not use this one because that's not the one I usually use. So let's open a new folder, and it's going to be Indie Meet. Cool. And then, so if you want to get to any of your dev container settings, you're going to go to this guy right down here, right here. And I'm clicking that. I could connect to WSL, but I'm going to reopen in a dev container. Hopefully this won't take too long. It's starting in a new one. And from this would be starting a new one. Yeah, let's go through this one. This is starting a brand new dev container for this project. I do have existing settings, but they're just like, I click the button that allows me to do my own configuration files, create new ones. So I could do Anaconda. I could do Anaconda and Postgres. I usually do Python 3 and Postgres. And I use Python 3.11, which is the default Bullseye. And I usually don't use any of these additional features, but there are so many more now. I love Rough as well. Yeah, Dev Containers is amazing for setting up complex dev environments. Actually, I've not used Dev Containers for AI yet, but my colleague Sarah Kaiser did at GitHub Universe. Excellent talk. Check that one out. She's a quantum physicist. Like, I know a quantum physicist. What? I know a quantum physicist. Now you know a quantum physicist. And so she does like Python and lasers and whatnot. So she's very cool. Yeah, so there's a lot of additional features. I never install these. That could be a whole nother one for another day. We're going to just keep going, and we're adding our configuration files. Yeah, let's just overwrite it. I don't have anything sacred in here. So we're overriding our existing dev container files, and we're creating a new one because we're risky. We live on the edge. Okay. See, are there other cool things that I can show you? Oh, yeah. Let's open it up, and I'll show you what they look like. Duh. Okay. So this is your dev container.json. Ooh, it's empty right now. I guess we got to wait for it to populate. Okay, this is a Docker file. This should look very familiar to people. All that's in here is Python buffer1 for your environment, and it identifies the image. That's it. Here's your Docker Compose. This should also look very familiar for people who already know. Oh, good luck on your midterm. Bye. This should also look very familiar for people because it's essentially what Docker does. It's your Docker file. Okay, so now it took over for me, and it's actually opening the remote container now. So I lost my file, but you can do things like have a post create. Oh, let me actually just go back to my presentation. I have some of this stuff in here. Okay. So you can pick from any existing Docker image, or you can create your own. This also allows you to remove local development settings, so you can troubleshoot some production environment settings. And then you can also declare all of your dev container settings declaratively. So they are explicit. And this also helps with open source projects. So, for example, I'm starting my journey into C Python. Oh, everyone wish me luck. It's so intimidating. But I'd like to contribute to C Python in the short term. And C Python has its own dev container, which made it incredibly easy to just to clone the repo and get started. Here are some of my key settings that I use in most of my dev containers. So for example, if you want to make sure that it shuts down, so your containers don't keep running, that was the thing that I was doing before that made me have to clean up all my open dev containers. If you want to do that, there's a shutdown action called stop compose. This is also your Docker file, and this is how I comment out my production Docker compose. I haven't figured out if that's actually the best way to do it. So if I'm wrong, I'm sorry. But that's what I do. I usually keep them right here, and then I switch up my Docker Compose. So, but these are all in my dev container.json settings. I also have a post create command. So post create will create the environment for you, and then it will automatically, in this line, what it's doing is it installs all of my requirements. So that's what pip install recursively meet requirements.dev. This is installing all of my dev requirements. This also is doing my opening up my ports. This is a line to how to specify the noisiness of your ports. Oh, I went backwards. There we go. Yeah. And then everything we just learned is also on GitHub Codespaces. So let's go back to our other environment. We're in the dev container. Yay, success. Okay, so we're inside the dev container, and I'll show you what these dev container settings look like. So instead of copying, what I did was create. And very, very scant. There's not a lot in here. And I'll show you that other dev container that was kind of brokenish. Let's see. It's right here. Okay. So here are some examples of some settings that's in a more complicated dev container. So this one I also created from Python 3 and Postgres. Postgres. I named my service app. This is where I was doing that stop compose action. This is creating those ports, and then this is labeling those ports, and then also showing how noisy they're going to be. So this one will notify, and this one will also be silent. And this is my post create. And there are more complicated ones. So in this setting, in this instance, hypothetically, I'm going out to see what Pamela Fox is working on, and I copy her work. That's the copy process, right? I can just copy this and move this over. And this is the create process. So I just created this from the UI, which was really cool. This references the Docker Compose. And then this is Docker Compose. And it also comes very well commented. And it also allows for you to have Postgres, which technically it will create two separate containers for you. It'll have a Postgres container and it'll have a app container, and they communicate together. And then this is my Docker file. And automatically, VS Code is like, hey, I don't see you have the Docker extension. Would you like to install? And I'll say, yeah, let's install. There you go. Cool. Time, I think what we're going to have to do is we're going to have a default, or excuse me, we're going to have a dedicated Codespaces episode, I think, because we didn't get to go to the Codespaces stuff. But everything we just learned is available also on Codespaces. And we only have like a few more slides left. Oh, so close. We can start coding instantly. There's flexible tools. You get up to 2 core. It starts at 2 cores, 8 gigabytes RAM, and 32 gigabytes of storage. And it goes up to 32 cores, 64 gigabytes of RAM, and 128 gigabytes of storage. And this is all that we learned today. But we'll go deeper into Codespaces next time. I'm going to open up an actual repo on GitHub. If you go to the top right-hand corner, there's like a little green button, and you can just open it in Codespaces, and it lets you spin up your development environment. And it uses all of the settings from Dev Containers, which includes all of the settings from VS Code. And then it allows you to open it up without having to use any of your own compute, which is very cool. Anyway, it's been really nice chatting with you all. I feel like I'm all talked out. I enjoy this every episode. This week was no different. Let's get my, I don't know. I was going to pull up my goodbye script. I don't even know where it is. So what I'm going to say is it's been fantastic hanging out with you all for this year. It's been a full year, 13 episodes of the Python Pulse. So join us. It's going to be the second Friday of the month in January. I'll see you next time in 2024, next year. And we're going to be talking about some cool stuff. I think there's like a little bit of a secret episode that I'm going to tell you, and no one's supposed to know. We'll have someone who works at a fancy container company hanging out with us, and one of my best friends at my work environment talking about some VS Code stuff. And then we're going to talk about legacy stuff in VS Code and how it came to be, hopefully, if they confirm their attendance. So I appreciate everyone being here. Shout out to Peggy, the fantastic Peggy, for whom this would not be able to run. She's an awesome producer. And join us on the Python Discord, where we'll be hanging out. Oh, also, in 2024, I think we're going to do post-episode hangouts in the Python Discord. So join the Python Discord now, so you don't have to join the Python Discord later. Get a run of the place. Get super cool. That's my dog shaking. He's really excited too. And yeah, we're gonna hang out on Discord in 2024. Be there, be square. Bye, y'all.